Hello, bright souls. This is Pierre from Petrazzuri, and I wanted to talk today about Kamala Harris. She had a birthday on October 20th, 2021, and I'm calling this video Out of the Shadows in Work, Personality, and Relationships. And I want to talk about roughly the period between the 20th of October 2021 to the 31st of January 2022. Now, this seems to be a significant period of time for Kamala because she is having a change of the flavor of the cycles in her life right during this period. So, like I said, her birthday was on the 20th of October. Her actual solar return was the 20th of October 2021 at 4:56 p.m. Pacific time. So the first thing I want to talk about is it's a timing technique that is called Firdaria, and it gives you sort of the flavor of a period of time in your life. Usually these periods of time are about 10 years. And for her, she had been in a period of time. Here's her Firdaria chart. She had been in a period of time where Venus was what we call her Time Lord, the one that sort of indicates to us where a lot of the energy is. But you can see here, as of October 20th, 2021, when she turned 57, that she now has the Time Lord of Mercury. So she's having a bit of a shift of energy from Venus, which is more about, values. It's a little bit kind of, on the peaceful kind of side, a little, wanting to be in the luxuries and that kind of thing, to Mercury, which is more about communication, thinking. It's quicker moving. Mercury moves very fast. And the interesting part about her Mercury is that Mercury, hold on, let me find something to annotate with. So Mercury is actually the ruler of her ascendant. So Mercury is a pretty important planet for her. So Mercury is about, it can be very changeable. Again, it's about communication, negotiation, ideas, curiosity. Sometimes, it can be the trickster. So, it can be a little tricky there. And a lot around news and information. A lot in the details, not as much the sort of higher learning concepts as with Jupiter, but details, information, that kind of thing. Now, the interesting thing about her for Mercury is that it's a little bit what we would call debilitated, meaning it doesn't function for her as well as as other placements, because for her, Mercury is what we call combust. It's combust the sun. So you see Mercury is right next to the sun. So Mercury is in essence being burned by the sun, so it can't function as well as it would like to. The other thing I note about Mercury for her is that it's in a different sign for the sun. So not only is the sun sort of absorbing all of, her Mercury energy, her thoughts and ideas are kind of in a different realm than her, her consciousness, her what's at the core of her being. And so she has to work harder to meld those two together. Another interesting thing about Mercury for her is that natally it does really support what we call her MC, which is mainly about her, can be about her station in life, her reputation, how people view her. So even while, so while Mercury does not perform well, so it does support her in her career, but sometimes things may be a little bit off with it if she can't really meld and get that power out of Mercury. And the same thing goes with her, how she presents herself to the world. It can be a little bit awkward because it rules this first house of personality and self-identity and that sort of thing. So we can see that, she may have in her life kind of had some troubles with Mercury, but Mercury can also be, it can also still be productive. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is another Time Lord in a different timing technique, which is called annual perfections. So for her, the Time Lord, she's in what we call a 10th house perfection year. And her Time Lord for this year is Jupiter. So the 10th house has to do with career. So that's why in my title, I'm talking about how her career. And so we can expect over the next year for there to be a focus on her, on issues relating to career, her public standing, what she's doing in the world, reputation, her public life. So there should be a lot of emphasis in that area. Now with Jupiter rules her house of career. And now we consider Jupiter as a beneficial planet. Which means that, beneficial. It grants benefits to the person. So Jupiter can also indicate a quickening, a growth. It enhances things, it really wants to make things bigger. Jupiter is about like the bigger picture, the larger beliefs. And Jupiter can be larger than life. There's a sense of optimism, wisdom, and it can also indicate some fair amount of generosity. So with Jupiter in being a factor, we may expect some of those types of things coming up for her in terms of her career and public standing. Now, the only caveat about that for her is that because she was born at nighttime, Jupiter is not necessarily the better benefic for her. The better benefic for her is Venus. But Jupiter can still be, it just means that Jupiter maybe does not have quite as much energy as it would if she were born in the daytime. So, we can look at that and see what happens. Let's see. The other things that may come up in terms of Jupiter being her Time Lord this year is this area, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So she may have also issues coming up around relationships, maybe enemies who are out in the open, people who she knows to be her enemies, or maybe something in her marriage. Maybe the marriage gets better, or some issues in the marriage are enhanced. But Jupiter can possibly, go to making those things better. Now, the other thing to note about Jupiter is bigger and larger and more is not always better. So sometimes Jupiter can enhance things that maybe you don't want enhanced in a certain area of life. So that would be something else that she would need to look out for. Now, another area, let's just circle also the 10th house. So we're seeing where Jupiter is in effect. In her natal chart, Jupiter is in her 12th house. The 12th house is of hidden things that are maybe like blind spots for her, or it can be also hidden enemies, or a connection with spirit and consciousness. But it's also things behind scenes. It's a place where you go in retreat. So I think possibly for her, when she withdraws or by herself, she experiences, great benefit around that, and possibly really internally to sort of greatly enhance herself. She probably needs to go within and withdraw for a while. So the other thing is that Jupiter, since Jupiter rules her house of work and career and public status, there could be elements there's a lot of maybe behind the scenes elements that support her career and her public reputation. There could be, there's a lot of maybe service element involved in her work. Things having to do with institutions where people get locked away. It could be hospitals, prisons, that kind of thing that have some relationship to her work life. So those are just some of the issues that may come up this year when we're looking at, first of all, this changeover to Mercury as a Time Lord, which will be for the next 10 years. And then secondly, for the next year until her next birthday, where you have Jupiter as a Time Lord, which is thought to be beneficial. But I think with Jupiter, people have to be careful that Jupiter is not enhancing things that you may not want to enhance, or providing so much to you that, things get overwhelming. All right, so let's just go to, let me go to current transits on her chart. And the one other thing I wanted to say was that until about the 18th of October, Mercury and Jupiter were in retrograde. So there may have been a sense for her of, things are not, moving forward right now. I want to move forward. Things having to do with myself, my career, my partners, my home life. And then on the 18th, Mercury and Jupiter came out of retrograde. So with our birthday on the 20th, she's sort of off to a good start. It'll take a couple of weeks for things to pick up in those areas, but there's often a sense of relief if people are sensitive to these things when especially planets that rule certain areas of the house then go forward. All right, so let's go forward to where I want to go next, to October 24th. So we're looking here at, what do I have? Uranus, trine, and the trine is a beneficial aspect. For her, I'm just looking at, and I know these are outer planets, so those aren't really traditionally outer planet to outer planet, but I don't know. I sort of think there's something that could happen here. You have a 12th house trine to her Uranus in the 4th house. So there could be some opportunities for sudden action from behind the scenes or from far away or from some unconscious thing within her that may cause an unexpected change in her home and family living situation. It could shake up any stability and order that she has in her family or home life, which she's probably very detailed around, how she likes things in the home and that kind of thing. So but she's also probably used to some disruption in that area, so that won't be entirely new to her. But there's some new disruption perhaps that's coming up. And it's something that she probably experienced before, like last year. So because Uranus is in retrograde, going back towards something that might have happened here anyway. So anyway, it may disrupt her desire to currently be hidden and isolated, but it will probably be seen as a fortunate thing, whatever it is that comes in and shakes things up again. Okay. So now let's move forward to, we're gonna move forward to October 26th, where, all right. So there's another timing technique that I want to look at to kind of see what's going on for her. And it is called, we're going to go to, well, before I go there, let me talk about why I'm saying she's coming out of the shadows. So with this timing technique called progressions or secondary progressions, we mainly look at the action of the moon. And for her moon for the past 2 or so years has been in this 12th house of withdrawal and hidden things and retreat and, whatever foreign, even far away things. And she may not have felt a lot of energy and, just needed to get a lot of rest, even though obviously her daily demands require her maybe not to take as much retreat as she needs. But anyway, the moon has been in this state. So there's a sense of, yes, she needs to be retreating. It's kind of maybe the end of a cycle, sort of letting go of everything that came before in the previous 24 years and regrouping. And she's going to start out anew when the moon then heads forward into her first house, which is where herself and her personality are being seen. And that is going to happen. That moon is going to change from the 12th house to the first house on October 26th. Oh, no, not on the 26th. Wait. Oh, no, that's not what I'm talking about right now. So actually, we're going to do progressed moon on the 26th. Let's go back. So on the 26th of October, what she's looking at is there's perhaps a conflict between what she needs and what she believes. She's going to have this moon square her natal Saturn in the 9th house. So this will last for just a short period of time as the progressed moon moves forward. But there's something hidden, or maybe something from behind the scenes that is affecting sort of like her beliefs, the structure of her beliefs. Or she may be isolated by some foreign authority or restrictions on her ability to see the big picture in terms of humanity. Or there could be something like she has a need, her need to withdraw is in conflict with the responsibility to people, humanity, her belief system, or something like that. So we can expect around this time, there's some sort of consternation, there's some conflict between herself, maybe her home, and maybe some authority, or between her desire to be, to sort of stay behind the scenes, and the need to maybe even step out into, sort of a leadership role in terms of the bigger picture, or some leadership role in foreign affairs or something like this. So that is coming up on the 26th of October. And then we want to move forward to what's happening, so after about the 26th, there's a little bit, there's some other aspects, but not really, let's say, too significant, but, other things come up in people's lives that are not related to transits. But where I want to go to is November 19th. And so when we start looking at November 19th, we have transit Jupiter in the 9th, trine natal Jupiter in the 12th house. So let me mark that up. We've got transit Jupiter here and natal Jupiter here. It's not trine, it's square. So we get a square going on here. And then we've got natal Jupiter, the trine is to her ascendant. So this trine to the ascendant can be very, very supportive of self and how she's presented in the world. But so when we get this square between Jupiter and Jupiter, there's sort of like that continuation of the conflict between being hidden and taking responsibility for what she needs to, taking responsibility for her beliefs and for what needs to be done in terms of the future, and especially with social groups and humanity and maybe foreign things. But Jupiter, because it's Jupiter, she may have help there, perhaps from a generous mentor or something like that. Jupiter's prominent involvement could deliver things that may overwhelm, but the key here for her will be to deal with things one at a time. There seems that there could be much benefit coming from foreign places and or the core beliefs, her own core beliefs that are forward-looking, not sort of the same old things, but more innovative beliefs, which you will need to avoid overdoing. And then with this trine between Jupiter and the ascendant, she may experience increased vitality from whatever is going on in those areas, especially after she resolves whatever the issue is. So her mindset will be more open. Even her appearance, she may look better. She might need to avoid sort of overindulging in food and things, because Jupiter can cause a tendency to weight gain. And she may feel more generous in terms of how she meets the world. Now, I want to remind everyone here that because I'm doing an analysis of someone who I'm not talking to, this is just my perspective, and really whatever goes on in the chart is dealt with the individual. So this is the way we look at it from the outside may not be what she's experiencing from the inside, and there may be ways that she's dealing with this that have nothing to do with what we're looking at. The other thing that is happening here, and I want to, I think it's on the 19th, but it might be a different, and I'm using I'm using Alexandria just because that's where my software is set. I'm not using her natal. And this is fine because she's generally supposed to be in this area around DC, so that's where the transits are. Now, yeah, on the 19th of November, which is a Friday, there is going to be a lunar eclipse. Now, she's been experiencing these lunar eclipses in her 1st and 7th house, so around self and relationships with others for the past year and a half. Now, this eclipse, it's interesting because what delineates the eclipse is actually the nodes, but since the moon is in Taurus and the sun is in Scorpio, we're saying that this is an eclipse in Taurus and Scorpio instead of in Gemini and Sagittarius like they were before. So this is actually the first eclipse in a new cycle of eclipses that's going to go through Taurus and Scorpio. So for her, so this is sort of like the preview to what's going to be happening over the next year and a half, starting for her in December. I think it's December, or maybe it's not until next spring where you really get into the Taurus Scorpio eclipses. So in this case, there could be light being shined on her inner anxiety and fears of the unknown. It's still going to be a time for her to rest, but she may still be dealing with a lot in her everyday life things, and she's really conscious of sort of like there are hidden things in her everyday life that she's really focused on, and these could be, tiring her out, causing her to need to retreat. It's shining a light on what's hidden, perhaps on hidden enemies. And whatever she's been dealing with behind the scenes or internally, emotionally, will come to its peak with this eclipse. Perhaps a lot will be revealed, though the timing may not necessarily be exactly on the eclipse, because what I've noticed with eclipses is that, yes, things can suddenly happen on an eclipse, but a lot of times the issues start developing over this whole year and a half or so period of time where you have a series of eclipses in the same signs. All right, so that's something significant. There's something, there's a way where she's going to become more conscious of these hidden things in her life. She's going to be more conscious about maybe even some things that are going against her. So that'll be pretty interesting on the 19th. And a lot of this may be internal. We may not know, what exactly it is for her. All right, so now let's move on. This is what I was jumping the gun earlier. We'll move on to December 3rd, if I don't want to do that hourly. So we'll move on to December 3rd, where, and I need to change the chart to the progressed chart, because this is where we're going to see this moon move into the 1st house. Let's just go. We're going to December 3rd. Perfect. All right. So here you see on December 3rd, this progressed moon goes out of the shadows and into the 1st house of self-identity, how she presents herself to the world. And this is going to be a big shift, because this is different from the past 2.5 or so years where she's been mainly, sort of behind the scenes, not even necessarily wanting to be seen. She's been needing some sort of recovery period behind there. And now the moon's going to come into the first house in Gemini. So she's finally coming out of hiding and retreat and withdrawal, or actually even maybe feeling confined. You know, maybe she was being forced to be out of the forefront and, you know, being confined and behind the scenes. Perhaps she's being freed from the pressure of hidden enemies as this moon comes into her first house. And she's stepping into a time of more curiosity. She's perhaps going to be more busy, more multitasking. This is her, you know, because it's her rising sign Gemini, you know, this is an area that she's used to, but there may be sort of a little bit different flavor as the moon comes into here. More mental stimulation, more social interaction, and perhaps there'll be a more nurturing element to her habits and her interface with the world. We'll see. But even still, since it's Gemini, her conversations and even maybe her nurturing quality will be more superficial, because she'll have that, still have that need for movement, networking. You know, Gemini is not that much into the details. It's more surface level. And she may still be a little bit changeable, spread thin, and perhaps unfocused. But there's definitely going to be a focus on self. She may actually change her appearance, change how she wants to interact with people, try to maybe be a little bit more softer, nourishing, motherly. But it may seem like she's changing a lot, you know, sort of from month to month. If you think about the moon, you know, changes its quality every month. So this we'll see what happens, you know, how stable she is. But I expect to see a change in how she's presenting herself to the world. All right, so now let's go back to the transits again. And we will see on December 4th. So this is, and the reason we're seeing this is we're going to see another eclipse. This is eclipse season. We move into starting November 19th through December. So on December 4th, so you know we had the lunar eclipse on November 19th, and then on December 4th we're going to have a solar eclipse. December 4th we're going to have the solar eclipse, and I want to kind of get it quite right. So for a solar eclipse, the moon and the sun, it's a new moon. So I'm just trying to get the moon. This will be close enough, I think. Yeah, that's even closer. Yeah, no, we'll go there. So here on December 4th, we will have this solar eclipse. Now, you know, we don't see all of the eclipses that happen all the time. So this is not about seeing an eclipse in the sky. This is about the energies of the sun and the moon and the nodes of the moon. All right, so this eclipse is happening in her 7th house of relationships, marriage, partnerships. Like usually it can be friends, but also like a lot of times work partnerships. And so it's possible. So the thing is that there can be here a loss of something, maybe a loss in some sort of relationship, but also a new start. So I don't know what that means, but particularly for her, but usually with the South Node, you know, we're talking about a a purification, sort of a whittling away of something. But then the new moon and the sun is a new cycle for the moon sun cycle. So there's something new. So it could be there's a new start in partnership with someone she considers a teacher or someone who is larger than life. This here on the December 4th solar eclipse. It could be with someone who has a great ability to impact the essence of who she is, or it could be the loss of a relationship with someone like that, but then the start of a new relationship. There will be a purification of the relationship, or could be, and it could be that the new start is an ending to the relationship that actually benefits her and how she wants to meet the world. Or it could be the start of a relationship. So we don't know, but this indicates some sort of activity in relationships or in the marriage or something like that. Or business partners as well. Okay, so that's gonna be something to look out for in December, the beginning of December. The first half of December is probably going to be pretty active for her because, she's going to be stepping out in terms of self and how she interacts with the world. And then there's going to be some maybe changes with who she's working with, her partnerships. Okay, so let's moving through the second half of December. I expect that she'll be feeling pretty good about herself. We have coming up transiting Jupiter is going to be sextile her natal moon. When's that going to be? Well, so it's going to be sextile her natal moon, which is a good sort of supportive thing for self, mind, emotion. And then she's going to also have Jupiter trine her sun in the 5th house. And so that's again some support for her consciousness, who she is at her core, who she feels like she is at her core, an enlargement of those areas for her. So Jupiter will offer the opportunity for her to feel good in mind, body, emotions, and in her sense of self, particularly with respect to friends and networks. And she may have a lot of support for groups of people, which is, for her, she really needs that. But I think she may go after that in a way that's it can be too much for some people because she's got this moon in Aries. So, she may sort of seek that type of connection with people. And it could be, it could be irritating for her, but it could be in a way that irritates people as well. But she may have support for that when this Jupiter transit comes up. And she will possibly be engaging in a lot of fun and play with friends. But she'll need to be careful not to overdo or to feel too full of herself. So that's going to be a theme for her over this next year with Jupiter as her Time Lord. Not to overdo and not to become too big for her britches, too full of herself. All right, so let's move forward to December 20th. December 20th, we have transiting Jupiter. Again, I'm looking mainly at her Time Lord transits. Not as much Mercury for the Firdaria, just because Mercury moves pretty fast and those kinds of things are not, they're super, super quick. But here we'll have transit Jupiter conjunct her natal Saturn in the 9th house. So Jupiter is expansive, Saturn is contracting. Now she has natal Saturn in the 9th house, so she's used to maybe feeling a little bit restricted in terms of higher learning, in terms of her overseas relationships, in terms of her beliefs, religiosity, her spirituality. Later in life, those things may be getting better for her, but she internalizes this a lot. So this is probably not something that a lot of people see. But when Jupiter comes here, conjunct Saturn, there could be support for new structures in terms of long distance travel for her or long distance relations. There's an opportunity to clarify and commit to a vision for how to connect to the big picture involving humanity, how to connect to the big picture with a vision towards the future. There could be an intensity of focus on rules, boundaries, structures, and limits, but hopefully in a rational and thoughtful way. So there's going to be something that there's a blending here with Jupiter and Saturn where she may have some help with forming structures, especially with foreign things or with belief systems and that kind of thing. So that is going to be December 20th. Now, when we go forward, the next thing we want to look at, so on, I think it's December 31st. So let's go to the 31st. So remember, Jupiter right now has been in Aquarius, where Jupiter is okay. It's not, not its favorite place, but it's also been sort of cavorting there with Saturn, who rules Aquarius. So Jupiter really hasn't been able to be its full Jupiter self in Aquarius, but it's been okay. Now, when we move to December 31st, right before the new year, and everybody will hopefully benefit from this Jupiter going into Pisces. So you see, it's actually before the 31st. It's going to be Jupiter, December 29th, Jupiter goes into Pisces, which Jupiter rules Pisces. So Jupiter's going to feel at home. Jupiter's going to be way more effective. All of the benefits and things that we're all looking for are going to be better with Jupiter and Pisces. Now, there's some things about Jupiter and Pisces, there can be more spiritual healing. There can be more relief from a lot of things, but there can also be a lot more mind expansion, just sort of, a lot of compassion. There could be a lot of people, though, releasing into, into that spiritual realm. So we'll have to see. But so what I want to say is, with her going into January and Jupiter in her 10th house, things may look up for her in terms of career, remembering that Jupiter is not so powerful for her, and also looking up in terms of her partnerships and, whatever things are going on behind the scenes as well. The other thing that's going to happen is that Jupiter will be in a supportive relationship here in a trine with her chart ruler. So there's going to be even more of a boost to self, more of a boost to home life, and also a boost to her career and public standing, because Jupiter, especially when Jupiter finally gets conjunct her MC, or her, this strong point of her public reputation, herself, and how she's seen in the world. So really, starting in January, this is like the first week of January, we have this really strong boost to career. Let's see, what else did we see? I mean, that really is going to be part of the strongest transit that we see for her in the beginning of January. So boost to self and career and public standing. Her thinking may be improved, and self and identity a bit more solid. Again, needing to look out for overdoing it. She may be more, I say loquacious, but maybe more talkative, but perhaps in a way that is more fluid, with a little bit more, maybe a bit more sensitivity, a bit more compassion. let's see, these weaknesses that we talked about before with Mercury may be helped by this small transit with Jupiter. And again, I just say Jupiter, she'll have to look out for Jupiter making her feel like more than she actually is, and more than what's going on. Last thing I want to talk about is another progressed transit when we get to the end of January. So we got to the end of January 31st. What we have here is progressed moon is going to be square her MC. Again, the MC being that really focal point of career, public reputation, public life, that kind of thing. So she may be feeling at that point a conflict between herself, her habits, her mindset on the one hand, and her work and public image on the other. So there's going to be some sort of adjustment that she needs to make in terms of what she wants to do for herself, how she wants to nurture herself, and how she's, how things are going in terms of her public life, especially because that public life is possibly going to be even more enlarged at that point. So there's an adjustment period. She'll really need to go on her instincts and intuition to blend with what's going on in public life, and she'll have to try maybe not to be so much in her head about things, because really that maybe doesn't go as well for her. But even with the intuition for her, it may come off as a bit too much, as a bit kind of fiery. So she's going to really have to control how she's feeling about that. So that's what I have for Kamala Harris coming up in the next few months. I do think if this Jupiter, it'll just depend on how Jupiter treats her. Like I said, Jupiter is not as strong in her chart, but I think even just relative to whatever she was experiencing before, and with Venus being her Firdaria Time Lord, is her natal Venus, I think is not actually that strong either. And last year she had Saturn as a Time Lord, so there were a lot of restrictions actually for the past 2 years. So last 2 years there are a lot of restrictions on her, and so now Jupiter's coming in and sort of relieving her of those restrictions. And so any sort of step out of Saturn and into Jupiter may be pretty good for her. So that's what I have for her. Thank you for listening, and I will be back soon for some other analysis. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me at peer@petrazuri.com, and I will see you soon. See you later, bright souls. Bye.